The recent findings from deploying this technology are nothing short of mind-blowing, because what's been discovered is that there are huge structures coming down from the base of the pyramid deep into the bedrock, in fact, over 600 meters deep, which then connects to structures that extend up to 2 kilometers below the surface of the ground. 2 kilometers, massive internal structures connected to the base of the pyramid and extending deep, deep down. This is what we know so far.
So what was found underneath some of the great pyramids, some of the great ancient pyramids? And why is it so shocking to many? But biblically speaking, it shouldn't be shocking to any of us.
This decade-old meme of what lies beneath the pyramids in Giza. Has science now proven this to be correct? Do we live in a simulation? Is it all been predictive programming? Who controls the memes controls the future, says Elon Musk. Science has now proven that this is what exists beneath the pyramids, a massive cylindrical structure all the way down to the bedrock. Has science actually proven this? We'll get into this. It's absolutely wild. Apparently, archaeologists have discovered huge spiral-shaped cylinder structures stretching 600 meters, 2,000 feet straight into the ground, all the way down to the bedrock. These massive findings, located more than 2 kilometers below the pyramid's base, hint at enormous hidden structures deep underground. How could this be possible? This is the new structure of the pyramids. Of course, the pyramids were built thousands of years ago. We have no idea how. There's no way that ancient Egyptians should have been able to build those pyramids.
I know Benny Johnson, he makes a claim that he's a Christian. And I want to cause a pause there. Now, if I was an atheist with my worldview, with man coming from primitive ape-like creatures, our ancestors being from primitive ape-like creatures, evolving into where we are today, that would be more of a question, because the idea of us coming from ignorance to intelligence over time is a big aspect of the evolutionary theory. Whereas coming from a biblical perspective, mankind being born with intelligence, created in the image of God, created largely perfect when we talk about from a physical aspect, and looking into biblical history, such as building the Tower of Babel, the idea that man was able to create something this advanced makes more sense, because biblically speaking, we have devolved since creation, since the first man and woman. Where we are now over time, as we've had to deal with genetic mutations, which caused with deleterious mutations, how they're often referred to, meaning they've caused harm or they've ultimately shortened our lifespan. Again, I'm speaking from a biblical perspective. Mankind being able to create amazing structures like this should not be shocking to any of us. But again, if we're looking at it evolutionary, from an evolutionary perspective, that's when people get caught up in ideas like aliens, ancient aliens needed to build the pyramid or the Sphinx or some of these other ancient structures that from that worldview would be impossible or extremely difficult. Now, I'm not trying to act like it's not a big deal and it isn't impressive either way. But if we seek to be consistent, biblically consistent, none of us should be surprised at all.
Let's quickly read the findings of the study. To conduct the study, researchers used a new method to see below.
Oh, and one more thing. Make sure you stick around after we get done with this session, because we'll go into some research that shows you, that proves just how advanced ancient man really was. So you're going to want to stick around for that.
Objects on Earth. They beamed radar pulses from satellites in space down to the pyramid and analyzed the signals that bounced back. These signals, when convened into sound waves, create a 3D image of hidden structures under the Earth's surface, including 8 descending wells, about 33 to 39 feet in diameter, that extend at least 2,000 feet below the surface. The results also captured staircase-like structures wrapping around each of the 8 wells, which the scientists said appeared to serve as access points to the underground system.
Wow.
At the end of the wells were massive rectangular enclosures measuring 260 feet per side. According to the researchers, each of these enclosures contained 4 shafts that extended from the top and descended even downward. During the news briefing released on Saturday, the researchers said that the water system had been identified beneath the platform located 2,000 feet below the pyramids in Giza, with underground pathways leading even deeper into the earth. The team believes there could be an entire hidden world of many structures underneath the pyramids. These are the findings right here.
And another point is that it's been said that what we know about ancient Egypt, we don't know a whole heck of a lot, because there's so much that has been hidden or buried under the sand. Because I believe, and again, correct me if I'm wrong on this, I believe people have said, archaeologists, scientists have said that parts of Egypt used to be covered in water where there's sand everywhere. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but God only knows what's buried underneath the surface. And again, this is a prime example.
Here and here, some of the radar detection, this is what they're scanned as, sort of what it would effectively look like, these massive pillars and vertical shafts. Now
Right.
the researchers are saying that this indicates a advanced civilization that existed some 40,000 years ago on Earth and predates.
Now, I take a more of a young Earth position on that. So, I'm thinking more in the thousands, like not tens of thousands, maybe 4,000 years ago, somewhere around that range, I believe. I'm not going to be looking at it from the same timeline. But like I said before, regardless of how you look at it, that's still pretty dang impressive. God created some amazing creatures. As flawed and as messed up as we are in the head, morally at times, he still made some pretty amazing creations.
It's the oldest man-made structures of its kind by many thousands of years. People making jokes online about this. We need to check underneath the Bass Pro Shop pyramid immediately. Many people are casting some doubt on it, right? Saying a third party needs to immediately do secondary testing to compare the results. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good thing, because scientific testing, as advanced as it can be and as cool as some of their findings are, they're often wrong.
This is incredibly important in science, neurotics, saying that this is what you might find under the pyramid of Lord of the Rings. But other experts, like Jay Anderson here, saying this might be the most significant scientific finding of any of our lives.
Much breaking news, because the new findings were announced on the 16th of March at a press conference held by the team who was studying the Great Pyramid of Giza with a non-invasive technology that was first developed by Filippo Bionde and Corrado Malanga, called synthetic aperture radar Doppler tomography. So this was used to explore the internal structure of the Great Pyramid of Giza. And this method leverages the analysis of micro movements typically generated by background seismic activity to achieve a high resolution, full 3D tomographic imagery of the pyramid's interior and subsurface components. The recent findings from deploying this technology are nothing short of mind-blowing, because what's been discovered is that there are huge structures coming down from the base of the pyramid deep into the bedrock, in fact, over 600 meters deep, which then connects to structures that extend up to 2 kilometers below the surface of the ground. 2 kilometers, massive internal structures connected to the base of the pyramid and extending deep, deep down. This is what we know so far. Utilizing high-resolution radar images from Capella Space and Umbra, which are 2 private companies that specialize in satellite-based synthetic aperture radar imaging. This has allowed researchers to create a 3D model of the internal structure of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Now, this model has revealed a previously unknown chamber with 5 horizontal levels and a sloping roof, which in of itself is an architectural design unlike any previously documented in the Giza pyramid. But the most shocking discovery lies beneath the surface, below ground level, radar tomography has identified vertical cylindrical structures extending for hundreds of meters beneath the pyramid. There are 8 of these cylindrical wells arranged in 2 parallel rows, descending to an astonishing depth of 648 meters.
So, I mean, listen, people are going to be basing their entire scientific credentials on all of this. If they're lying or if this is just complete garbage, then these scientists will never work again. I do feel like it's my obligation to everyone to point out that the CIA has a document where they did effectively astral projection through the spirit and thought plane back to 1 million years BC to life on Mars. And the document suggests that the Martians, here's the document. Please feel free to read it yourself. It's declassified. You can read it. And there's a subject that is able to see deep into the past and says that there are massive giant aliens who are building pyramid-like structures on Mars, and they're teaching Americans, they're teaching human beings, right, how to do that as well.
Yeah, that's automatic nonsense in my mind. I think that is some kind of all this alien thing. If you want to go deeper into that topic, you're going to want to check out this video right here where I had an interview with an alien expert, or discuss a discussion with an expert in the whole UFO, UAP phenomenon. Powerful interview, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. And yeah, check out this video right here if you want to know my take and or my stance on what I believe is behind at the foundation of this whole UFO, UAP phenomenon. But I'm not buying this stuff right here. I'll put that out there right now.
Here's what the coil structures may be.
Even more intriguing, at the base of these structures are 2 massive cubic formations measuring approximately 80 meters in diameter. The tomographic data suggests that these are vertical wells with intricate spiral pathways. Now, this design not only implies a functional purpose, but also a level of sophisticated engineering that completely blows the dynastic Egyptian model out of the water.
Let me share with you a video that I think you'll find very helpful. I know I did, and it was very educational for me when I first stumbled upon it. This is from the guys over at CMI from Creation Ministries International, where they discuss the genius of ancient man. Fascinating video. A few years old, but still very informative. I'll link the whole video down in the description.
And on today's episode, we're going to ask the question, how smart was ancient man?
How smart were they?
Yeah, well, evolutionists, often paint a tale of human history, starting with, we've got hairy ape-like creatures, and they get a little bit smarter, and finally they turn into, the first proto-humans, or first,
they invent fire, and then they grunt, and then they learn how to speak.
And they start living in caves, and a little while later they become hunter-gatherers, and then finally they get agriculture, and then they get technology, and et cetera. But the main point here is that you start with low intelligence and you go to high intelligence, and that's where societies evolve.
Right. And of course, the Bible paints a very different picture. We have, for example, in Genesis 4, we read this. Ada bore Jabal, and he was the father of all those who dwell in tents and have livestock. Wow, look at that.
Yeah.
His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all those who play the lyre and the pipe. Zillah was also born to Tubal-Cain. He was the forger of all instruments of bronze and iron.
Right.
Wow, a lot of technology there, right? And that's Genesis 4. It's the 4th chapter of the Bible.
Exactly. So right off the bat, the Bible describes people as having herds, and they make tents, and they make musical instruments. I don't know what you, but if somebody, said, "Hey, Cal, you go make me a bronze instrument or an instrument out of metal. I don't care if it's out of wood."
Good luck with that.
It's
not having any previous template to go from. I mean, not modifying some existing instrument, coming up with an instrument from nothing.
Even if you gave me a template, I'm not going to do it. But anyway, and we read in Job, Job 28, 1-2. This is right after the flood, basically chronologically, when we're talking
It's
about
a very old book in the Bible, yeah.
Yeah. Job 28, 1-2, 28. Surely there's a mine for silver and a place for gold that they refine. Iron is taken out of the earth, and copper is smelted from the ore.
So the Bible tells us that right from the beginning, humans were intelligent. There's no climb up the evolutionary ladder, nothing like that going on according to Scripture.
That's right. Now, obviously, biblical creationists and evolutionists are going to disagree about, pre-human species, the so-called hominids or ape men, or the
Sure.
precursors to humans. So we've already tackled that on different shows, and then you can look that up on the different episodes we've done. But what we really want to tackle here is, okay, let's talk about the people that both creationists and evolutionists admit were people.
Right.
Now evolutionists will still may have a caveat in there and say, yeah, but they were the beginning people, Neanderthals or whatever. We'll get into some of these things, but they're still considered people, Homo, in their version of history and in our version of history. So it just so we don't get confused here. So that's really what the argument we want to set up is: how primitive were actual people?
Actual people, right? We're not talking
Exactly.
about what the evolutionists call ape people or something
Right.
like that. So what we're to sum it up then, where do the cavemen fit into the Bible? We'll look at that. Those are actual people.
Right.
Are primitive societies less evolved? There are primitive societies still today, obviously.
Right.
Are they less evolved? Is there evidence that ancient civilizations had a high technology?
Right.
Something that would surprise us, surprise people.
But not if we take the Bible as plainly
Not if
written.
right, surprise most people.
Right. How smart was ancient man? Pretty smart. A little while ago now, CBC News released a story about a device made between 150 BC and 100 BC that was discovered in a shipwreck in 1901, from 1901, off the Greek islands of Antikythera. And so they call what they found in the shipwreck the Antikythera device. Now, first point I wanted to make here is they found this device encased in rock, and they actually had to take X-rays to see what was in there before they started chiseling it out and stuff like that. Which the first point I just wanted to make from that is that it doesn't take a long time for rock to form.
Yeah,
Many people think that
interesting
it takes
side
a long
note,
time.
but look at that X-ray there. That what kind of a device is that thing?
Yeah, well, it's pretty sophisticated, as the article goes on to say.
Yeah, the article describes the device in glowing terms with comments like "just extraordinary" and "the way the mechanics are designed just makes your jaw drop."
Right.
Whoever has done this has done it extremely well. Those are some of the comments there.
Right.
And as well here.
He stated that it was dated to 150 BC, 150 years before Christ. So you're talking well over 2,100 years ago, a device like this. And pay attention as he breaks down some of the specs, what this thing could actually do, or what they believe it actually was capable of doing.
Describing the machine as an analog computer. So they're calling this thing a computer.
Yeah.
It states that it possesses a differential gear, commonly associated, of course, with your car, and was capable of tracking the movements of the sun and moon and even eclipses.
Right.
So it's some kind of a telescope-like device, some tracking device. And it's also suspected of being capable to follow the planets. That's pretty complex.
Pretty brilliant engineering. And of course, as you take a look at the device, it looks very sophisticated. But one of the main points from the article was this: the greater question puzzling scientists is how such a useful device could have disappeared entirely from the archaeological record, so much so no record of anything as complex appears for another 1,000 years. See here, this is very interesting.
It is.
Where did the technology go? I mean, if they had it back then, but there's no other record of it except for 2,000 years ago.
Nothing's been preserved in that intervening 1,000 years.
I would argue that with wars and natural disasters and catastrophes, civilizations being destroyed, their record, their histories being destroyed, things like this can easily disappear from the human record. Like I mentioned previously with the pyramids, all the stuff that's buried under the sand, potentially, or not potentially, clearly, as we saw with the pyramid, why would it be shocking to anybody to believe that something like this could be hidden or lost?
Yeah.
Yet it was there
Exactly.
back in the day. There was this high technology device, whatever it was used for.
London Science Museum curator Michael Wright states this: I find it easy to believe that this technology survived unrecorded as to believe that it was reinvented in so similar a form. See, Just because we don't, have a record of something, way back when, doesn't mean they didn't have it. We just don't have a record of it.
Right.
So you can't automatically make the assumption, well, if we, find some remains of where people used to live, and we think it was a long time ago, but they did, we don't see any sophisticated technology. You can't just make the jump and say, well, they didn't have it.
Right. But the main point here, of course, is that the people, the group or person or individual, whoever designed this thing was very intelligent. That's the point.
Exactly.
It's an old machine, some type of a tracking device, and it's extremely complicated.
Of indications that there was high technology throughout history. In 1936, while excavating ruins of a 2,000-year-old village near Baghdad, workers discovered a mysterious small vase, and they call it the Baghdad Battery.
Yes, interesting.
It's 6 inches high. You can see here in the picture. It's a 6-inch high pot of bright yellow clay dating back 2 millennia. It contains a cylinder of sheet copper, 5 inches by 1.5 inches. And the edge of the copper cylinder was soldered with a 60-40 lead tin alloy comparable to today's solder. The bottom of the cylinder was capped with a crimped-in copper disc and sealed with bitumen or asphalt. Another insulating layer of asphalt sealed the top and also held in place an iron rod suspended into the center of the copper cylinder. And the rod showed evidence of having been corroded with an acidic agent. So they feel that this was a battery. And this works well with information from Dr. Colin Fink of the electrochemistry department at Columbia University. And he said that the ancient Egyptians copper-coated many artifacts using a form of electrochemical exchange. This involved a mixture of chemical elements which, when an object was immersed, caused an electrochemical charge that deposited the copper permanently on the object. So electroplating.
That's just amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the advances that we see in technology, we get advances, but it doesn't mean people long ago didn't have that information. It's just that when you don't have countries with large police forces, with armies to protect your technology, well, that can quickly get destroyed and so on. So
now it's still impressive, like I said earlier, but biblically speaking, that actually makes sense. Intelligent man being able to create advanced technology. Now, of course, technologies build on top of each other, but when you're talking about wars, when you're talking about many great catastrophes, as I mentioned earlier, things get lost. And again, dealing with the war issue, sometimes some civilizations will just destroy all the ancient writings and archives of other civilizations that they conquer to basically wipe them out of history to show their superiority over them. So this is not stunning. This should not surprise any of us who look to the Bible as our source of wisdom and knowledge. But let me know what your thoughts are. Comment down below. If you appreciate content like this, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And before you go, check out this video right here. I think you'll find it very helpful.